time. Okay, good looks. All right, welcome in everybody. We are going to be doing a pure fiction tier list today. If you've been hanging out in our community, you know that we've been doing pure fiction this entire first week that it's been out. I've been doing it on my account, which is completely free to play, and we've been logging into various community members' accounts and doing their pure fictions as well to gain some extra stars. So I feel like myself and our beautiful community right here are very uniquely positioned to give some opinions on which characters are really good for pure fiction. I am very much in the camp that believes that anybody that is playing HSR, even if you start today, before the cycle is up, there's still 5 weeks left of it as of us recording this right now, you'll be able to get all of your stars cleared, bearing that you invest in the proper characters. So that's what the tier list will be for today. We will be covering each and every one of these characters. I will be saying, why I think some of these characters are good, why I think some of them are not so good, because it's not exactly the same as the characters that you'd want to, say, clear a Sim U run or clear a Memory of Chaos run. Pure Fiction is certainly unique in that aspect. So we're going to go through one path at a time. First and foremost, we will be starting off with the Erudition Characters, as I do believe that they are MVP. Now, the only other thing that I would like to point out for this tier list, I very much dislike when people just spam characters into the S tier and A tier. I believe, my personal philosophy, S tier is for the top 10% of characters at most. Seeing as of right now, when we're doing this, there are 40 characters in the game. There will be no more than 4 characters in the S tier. I believe that it is reserved for the elites. It is reserved for the top of the top. So, although you guys may think, oh my gosh, this character is really busted, and they may up in A tier, it doesn't mean that they're bad. They can still be really busted. I just like to keep these characters, kind of balanced in the tier list. So let's go ahead and kick things off, starting with Erudition, because we already know that those characters are MVP. Please do comment. I'd love to see what you guys think as we're going through this. If you guys think that I'm shafting a character, if you guys think that a character deserves to be higher or lower, let me know. And in general, I want to know where you guys would place these characters. So starting with Himiko, let's get some Himiko grades up here in the chat above my head. Chat, I think it is very clear that Himiko is easily one of the S tier characters. Now, not everybody's going to have a Himiko. However, if you do have Himiko, it is her time to shine. The way that she operates within Pure Fiction and can regularly generate her follow-up attacks is literally perfect for it. I know some of you guys like to call Pure Fiction peak fiction, and in my opinion, she is peak for this. The reason we're starting off with Erudition is because there's no secret that these characters are top tier. So Himiko, having all of these fire weaknesses, being able to be paired with other characters that can AoE break character weaknesses, she's just really good. If you've got a Himiko on your account, there's a really good chance that you're clearing the majority of this content. Next up, Herta, who I would also put in S tier. I just told you guys that I don't think that we should put more than 4 characters, more than 10% in the S tier. But spoiler alert, again, these Erudition characters are incredible. I see a lot of S's going on right here. And for similar reasons, in a normal circumstance, the majority of the gameplay, Herta's only going to follow up once per enemy, which makes her follow up a nice add-on, but in my opinion, it's not something that you should really focus around. However, in Pure Fiction, where there's multiple enemies coming into the battle constantly, the fact that she can follow up so regularly helps you just shred levels. People with minimally invested Hertas are still able to do really well on these stages by investing in the power of Kurukudu. Now, I'm curious what you guys think of QQ here. And again, like I said, I spent a lot of time going through and playing on my account and other people's accounts. And I will tell you guys this, we have used QQ 0 times. I have QQ down in D tier. The main reason for this is the absolute, randomness, the RNG that comes with QQ's skill and how much she can get buffed. Now, maybe this is due to my ignorance. However, like I've told you guys, I want a solid spread here, and I would say that for me and my usage, I'm going to put her D tier. We haven't used her a single time, and we've been able to clear on a lot of people's accounts. It looks like the chat disagrees on this one. I see a lot of A's, B's, and C's. So maybe towards the end we can adjust this. I would like to know what you guys think. But for me, the amount of skill points that you may end up using and not having available for other characters isn't worth. Now, we've got 3 more characters left. For Serval, I'm curious what you guys think. I have Serval in B tier. Now, Serval is kind of getting gypped because she only gets the blast damage like Himiko and doesn't have a follow-up for, like Himiko's got the AoE follow-up. She too has a blast damage skill rather than the AoE like Herta, for example, but her ultimate is also AoE, and there's a lot of lightning weaknesses. Now, we haven't used or seen many Servals that are super OP and able to just grind out waves of mobs, but when paired with the right teammates, I think Serval is really good, specifically paired with like a Himiko. So I think B tier is fine. She lands right about average. If you're missing out on a lightning DPS, I think Serval can certainly help get the job done, but obviously I'm not putting her at the tippy top of the list. Now, moving up the list a little bit, I will put our general in A tier. Jin Yuan does have that full AoE on his skill, allowing him to, like I just mentioned, be a better version of Serval. Now, the reason I'm not putting him any higher is because with Lightning Lord, it turns out it's just like too slow to be like super viable. And in pure fiction, where you need a lot of damage and you need it quickly, right? We've only got so many cycles to work with. A key contribution to Jin Yuan's kit feels like it gets a little bit nullified. So although I do think he's a solid option, I can't quite put him at the tippy top. And the last of our Erudition characters, we're going with Argenti in S tier. Now, it is no secret that pure fiction has been made to highlight the usage and how well Erudition characters can do in the right setting, and I think Argenti is, just perfectly made for this. Not only do his skill and his ultimate hit all enemies, but this specific version of pure fiction is really good at helping him, or I guess it's just in his kit, but because we get so many enemies, he's constantly regenerating energy, and he's able to use his skill and ultimate quite frequently and just wipe out waves of enemies at a time. So, Erudition, I think, is on top. 3 characters in S tier out of the 4 I'm willing to put there. 1 in A, 1 in B, and maybe I'm doing QQ a disservice, but of all the accounts that we have used, I haven't used a QQ once, and I don't think that we've been at a detriment for it. So I did make my list ahead of time just to make sure I'm staying on what I thought earlier, and this is what we got for our Erudition here. Himiko, Herta, and Argenti, easy S tier in my opinion. Jin Yuan in A, Serval in B, and QQ down in D. Now, we're going to move on to Destruction next up. So, of these Destruction characters, I do think that some of them have been really good. Again, if you've been here hanging out with us, you've seen that we have relied on some of these Destruction characters a bit. But starting off with Physical Trailblaze, I think we put them in B tier. I think if you don't have enough AoE, if you don't have enough blast, they can kind of get the job done, but I'm not willing to put them much higher than that. I see a couple C tiers in the chat. To me, because there are a lot of physical weakness breaks, they can do okay. It's going to depend on your investment. And the reason I'm putting them at B rather than C, I think we have a skewed perspective of how good they can be because of the fact that not many people build them. A lot of people invest in the fire, the preservation version of Trailblazer more than the physical. But if we had put enough love and dedication into these characters, I think right in the middle, average on B tier would be fine. Now, moving on to Clara. Hold on, I think I might have... A quick spoiler? Oh, no, I did put them in C. Because I was about to say, I thought I put Clara in B. So, whoops. Take everything I just said and drop them down a tier. But Clara, we can apply that to. What do you guys think about Clara? Because the thing that is nice about Clara, she does have the AoE where she can hit all enemies, but the big part of her damage is coming from the follow-up, and to be honest with you guys, I don't think that relying on that follow-up is super effective in this game mode. Not to mention that her ultimate does not do damage. You know what I mean? Like, sure, it's good in countering, and that counter damage has been able to help us clear on some accounts, but there's just better options available. Now, moving on to some, again, characters that we really haven't touched, that we really haven't used. I'm just going to go through these really quickly. I don't want to slander, but Arlen and Hook have got to be in D tier. We haven't used them on literally any accounts. I think that there are better options, and to be fair, maybe they deserve to be higher, but we just don't see many people investing into these characters. And if you do have just 4 stars available on your account, as we'll go through this list, there's 4 stars that I think are more worth the time to investing in. So yeah, unfortunately, Arlen, unfortunately, Hook, we got to drop you guys down into D tier. However, Bladey has got to be A. I don't know that Blade will always be good for Pure Fiction, but in this rotation, with the wind weaknesses that we have available, the fact that Blade can do blast damage on, it's really his basic, but you know, like his skill basic blast damage. On his ultimate, we're doing blast damage. And with the follow-up attacking, he's hitting all enemies. He just gets to touch a lot of enemies consistently and cause them to either die, get close to blowing up. Like, his kit has been really good. And people with blades on their account, I think we've seen more success when we've been trying to add stars and clear content. Now, I'm really curious where you guys would rank Jing Liu. To me, she is the last of the S tier. Now, at the end of the day, there are really good supporting characters for Pure Fiction. And I think you really need supporting characters to really elevate yourself, especially in stages 3 and 4 to clear the content. But you gotta do the damage. No matter how good your supporting characters are, if you cannot DPS your way through it, it really doesn't matter. And Jing Liu, specifically for this rotation where there's so many ice weaknesses, I think deserves that 4th and final S tier slot. I see some A's in the chat. Honestly, I don't think that's a crazy take, but for me and the accounts that we've been the most successful on, having Jing Liu has been a godsend in my opinion. She's one that's been shredding through and kind of giving me comfort and peace of mind. She is kind of like the meta DPS character right now in all aspects of the game. But yeah, S tier because, yeah, I think you guys might disagree. I see like Ron May right here, and Ron May's really good, but she's not doing the damage, you know? And then, unfortunately, I love him, but in Bibbidi Libbidi, gotta go D tier. Way too heavy on the skill point usage. Similar rationale to QQ. Like, he doesn't have the RNG, but it's just still so much RNG that I think with other options available, DHIL, he's just not getting it done, chat. So, this is my destruction list. Oh, sorry, Shui Yi. Shui Yi's in B. Shui Yi, for similar reasons to the like blade rationale with the AoEs, with the follow-up. We actually haven't used Shui Yi much, but I'm putting her in B, maybe slightly out of ignorance, but I think that's reasonable for her. So, destruction list at whole. Jing Liu takes the final S tier slot. Blade in A, Clara, Shui Yi in B, both Trailblazers in C, and Arlen, Hook, and DHIL gotta wrap up the D tier. So I know that we have definitely got some disagreeing in chat, and we will definitely cover it here at the end. But let's move on to the next group real quick with our Hunt characters. Now, I think this could be slightly controversial as well, especially seeing as I just put Bibbidi Libbidi in D tier. But this might be my worst take, chat. Admittedly so. I gotta double check. I don't want to spoil the list, but I also gotta double check real quick. Yeah. Yanqing in C tier. Look, he gets spit on a lot by the community, and I already see like Yanqing Deer, or D, not Deer. But dude, because there's so much ice weakness, and this is again based off how we've been able to get through, clear, get extra stars. If he can chip down the elites, if he can get you a guaranteed kill, I think that C is worth it. Now, if we went into a rotation where there's less ice weaknesses, unfortunately, I think he drops to D tier pretty easy. But for right now, when ice seems to be a point of emphasis, that's where I've got him. Now, Dan Heng, on the other hand, let me double check. Yeah, okay. Dan Heng I got in D tier. Yo, Caro, thank you for the follow. So, Dan Heng, we just simply have not used on like any accounts. Yes, there are some wind weaknesses, but they're not like super prevalent. He's not doing AoEing like Blade. I just don't think that Dan Heng is gonna change life for you. Now, if you've got him built, sure, give him a try, but I wouldn't go out of your way to build him for Pure Fiction. Su Shang I'm going to put in C tier simply for a similar rationale to Yanqing. There's a decent amount of physical break that we get in this pure fiction, and the fact that Su Shang can boost herself forward. I know what you're thinking, Nix. Okay, you can boost yourself forward with Dan Heng as well. I'm just more confident in Su Shang's ability to do it, not to mention getting bleed and getting those physical breaks. I think it's just simply more valuable than what Dan Heng has to offer. Now, clearly, I'm not promoting any of these characters as they're in C and D tier, but that's my stance on it. Seele, and I'm going to go ahead and do Topaz. I have both of them in B tier. You could take my argument and use it against me right now, but Seele being able to proc the resurgence is very good. I see a couple people putting A. I don't think that's a crazy take, because Seele has the ability to take those enemies that are real close to dying but aren't quite there, use a basic, save some skill point economy, and then do some serious damage to an enemy that's got more left on their HP bar. She can do the same thing with her ultimate. So although she is a single target, character, I think she does do a nice job of taking out multiple enemies at once, and that can be pretty valuable. Similarly with Topaz, a single target character, but with Numby's follow-up with the fire weaknesses that are available, and specifically because of the fact that she can help out with the follow-ups for some of these other characters that we are considering to be valuable, I think Topaz deserves to be a tier up above the other hunts, Yanqing, Su Shang, and Dan Heng. I think the real argument would be to put Seele in A tier, but yeah, I've got both of them in B. So final hunt tier list. I don't think that any of them deserve to be an A or S. That again is reserved to me for the ones that can do damage across a broad spectrum of the enemies, or supporters that can help out in that cause. But Hunt, Seele, Topaz in B, Yanqing, Su Shang in C, and then Dan Heng, Sag down in D tier. Now, for our healers, let me remind myself real quick. Yeah, just making sure. So we'll go ahead and start with Mommy Natasha. Very sad, but Mommy Natasha is no bueno for this. She's only got a single target attack. She can keep you alive with her skill and with her ultimate. However, I think if you're really rocking and rolling through pure fiction, you don't really need to have a sustain, right? If you are eliminating enemies fast enough, you don't need the heal. And to be honest with you, her heals aren't even yeah, they're good, but it's just too healing focused. Is that the way that I should put it? But yeah, Mommy Natasha just ain't got it like that. Bailu, I'm going to put in C tier. Now, I do think Bailu is solid in this because she can do some lightning break. I guess you can make the argument Natasha can do some physical break, but she's got the invigoration, so she doesn't ever really have to use her skill. The reason that Natasha, I think, ranks lower is because her ult and her skill both heal, same as Bailu, but she doesn't have, I guess she does have something in her kit, so maybe I'm kind of realizing this as I'm going through. Just trust me on this one. A little bit better. Invigoration gives you that passive healing that you don't really got to worry about. And yo, Davu, thank you for the raid. Thank you for the raid. I appreciate it. I'm trying to power through this quickly so the video is not uber long. So excuse me for not greeting you properly, but mods, can we get a shout out? Lynx, I think I also have down in either C or D tier. I think I put her in C because of the fact that she can draw some aggro to your destruction characters that would like to get hit, like Blade or like Clara. That's really nice. But other than that, not that good. And then I think I already seen some disagreeing. Chat, let me know what you guys think. I have Lolcha and Huokwa in B tier. Now, I think they are by far the best abundance units to be used in pure fiction. Lolcha can do some AoE damaging with the ultimate. He can keep the passive healing, which is really nice. Huokwa can regen some energy, can give you a boost in your attack, which certainly helps you with destroying some of these enemies. However, I just don't think that their value as sustainers is that high in pure fiction. Again, if you can power through and just DPS your way through these enemies before they get a chance to attack, I think B is kind of where I can max out our sustainers. So, Huokwa and Lolcha in B tier, Bailu and Lynx in C, and unfortunately, Mommy Natasha in D tier. So, preservation, up next, and yeah, it's already been called. Jeppy, unfortunately, is D tier in my opinion. He's single target with his basic, he's single target with his skill, and although his ultimate is really nice for keeping you alive, it's great in MOC, it's great in things like Simu, the Swarm, the Golden Gears, it's just unnecessary for something like Pure Fiction where you just want to DPS as quickly as possible. Now, I have two. Yeah, so this is maybe one of the more controversial things as well, but I've got Preservation Trailblaze in B tier. Now, they do have blast damage on their basic, given that you were hitting the requirement. So 3 characters that you can do some toughness break on. On the skill, which I would not recommend using, they can taunt, they can pull aggro, it could help keep your characters alive, but on their ultimate, they can AoE and, you know, potentially weakness break a lot of characters, not to mention they do the taunt. As far as a preservation unit goes, similarly to how I feel about the abundance sustain units, I think that they're pretty top tier. Fu Xuan is the other one that goes in this category. Maybe you would want to argue Fu Xuan to A, like let me know where you guys think that she belongs. Fu Xuan can, you know, absorb some of that damage from your team. She's really good at increasing survivability in that way, as well as being able to AoE and attack the enemies. I just think that the pure damaging characters are a little bit more valuable. I totally understand if you would want to put her in A tier. I would like bump her above Preservation Trailblaze in terms of usefulness. I just can't say that she's much higher than that. And then for Marchie, I'm going C tier. I don't think, even though she can AoE with her ultimate, freezing characters is not ideal because depending on the blessing that you're using, if their turn's not coming up and if you're not getting the shatter buff, it kind of takes away from how effective that shatter buff can be. So although March can keep you alive a little bit, March can counter and break some toughness a little bit, and she can do good AoE, the freeze is what makes her a little less valuable, in my opinion, than somebody like Fu Xuan or the Trailblazer that can do some breaking and doesn't necessarily freeze the enemy and slow them down. So, preservation tier list is looking like this. Fu Xuan, both Trailblaze in B, March in C, and poor Jeppy in D tier. Now, last couple, Nihility Characters. This is a little interesting. And yeah, just to get it out the way, Kafka, she can DPS, she can AoE, there's lightning toughness break. I think she is on par with as valuable as Jing Yuan is because of the fact that she can AoE with the ultimate. She can blast damage with the skill. She can apply some shocks to get a little bit of extra damage, although I don't think that's nearly as valuable in a game mode like Pure Fiction. But when you need a lightning carry, Kafka can definitely get the job done. And the follow-up, you're right. The follow-up is nice as well. The other A tier out of Nihility, it's gotta be Pela. Again, because of the relevancy of ice enemies and how important it is to get these ice breaks, yes, she will freeze. You could make the argument that is a negative similar to March, but the big difference here is the fact that Pela gives you the defense shred as well. And because these Erudition characters, these AoE, these blast damage characters are so prevalent for being good in this mode, having somebody like Pela that can AoE defense shred, I think is incredibly valuable. I've been telling people all week long, build your Pelas, get her in gear, a lot of ice break. If you've got somebody that can follow up like Herta, like Himiko, it's super helpful to chipping down multiple enemies at a time. I think she's really solid. Now, Welty, for the same argument that we used for March, I think has got to go C tier. Yes, it's nice to be able to AoE. I think he's best used as not using his skill points, simply using his basics until you can get his ultimate. Unless a skill is going to get you that ultimate on said turn, maybe it'd be worth. Imaginary Break isn't super prevalent in this rotation of Pure Fiction, so him slowing the enemies down, preventing them from moving, not having a ton of Imaginary Break doesn't make him nearly as good in my opinion. Now, let me double check where I've got Sampo. Yeah, Sampo and Guinaifen. I've got both of them in B tier. Both of these characters offer you multiple targets being hit with their skill. Now, Gwenifen's got that blast damage going on, so it's a bit more controlled. Sampo with his bounces, you can't control nearly as well, but both of them also have AoE full target hits on their ultimates. And like we've spoken about, wind is pretty prevalent, fire is pretty prevalent, and I mean, you can make an argument that Gwenifen is maybe a little bit better, like maybe we bump her ahead of Sampo because of the Fire Kiss state, but paired with the right characters, being there to be able to get extra breaks, AoE, or just multi-target breaks at a time, I think is really solid, worth investing into. If you've already got your Kafka built, there's a chance that you already have a Gwenifen and a Luca built as well, and pairing them together is a really good combo. Nihility just kind of shreds. And then unfortunately, Silverwolf, too much single target. I think no bueno in this game mode. Great character, in my opinion, in the pantheon of the game. She's one of the top characters. However, in Pure Fiction, not so much. And similarly for Luca, it's just too much single target. It's all single target out of Luca. He just doesn't really stack up in the same way that a Gwenifen or a Sampo does. So, for the Nihilities, Pela Kafka on top at A, Gwenifen and Sampo at B, Welty at C, and then Luca and Silverwolf in the D tier. Now last but certainly not least, we've got our Harmony units. I think the Harmony units are incredibly good, and we'll go ahead and start things off. I do have Bronya and Ranmei in A tier. Now, for totally different reasons. Ranmei is a little counter, is a little... yeah, a bit of a counter argument to what I was saying previously with a character like Welt, with a character like March that keeps these enemies frozen. Ranmei does get the stun lock, but I do think they still take their shatter damage when their turn comes up and they get stun locked, which kind of like, goes against that. Not to mention though, her skill and her ultimate give you additional damage. It can help, again, these blast damage characters, these AoE damage characters do additional damage and wipe waves easier, quicker, more efficiently. Bronya, for a totally different reason, is incredible. Getting Bronya to add additional turns to each of your cycles, specifically paired with Blade, has been an incredible combination. But with any of these top tier damage dealing characters, using a Bronya to get Jingliu another turn, Argenti, Herda, Blade, so on and so forth, is so good. So even though neither of these characters are doing damage, they seriously help out, they seriously assist in making sure your team as a whole does the damage necessary to excel in Pure Fiction. Now, Asta and Ting Yun, for very similar reasons, I have in B tier. Curious if you guys would agree. Asta has some fire damage. Again, it's got the bounce mechanic like Sampo, so it's not like it's super consistent, but it is solid. It's helping us out. And more specifically, both of these characters with Dance 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 allow them to jump the cycles. Yo, Draven, thank you for the raid. Welcome in, Raiders. I'm almost done with this tier list, and I will address you guys properly. Just trying to power through so I can post this on YouTube without too many edits. But welcome in, Raiders. Hope you guys are doing good. But Ting Yun being able to battery your energy, Ting Yun being able to boost your attack again. Similarly to Ranmei, similarly to Bronya, both of these characters, just from a slightly discounted perspective as they are 4 stars, allow your damage dealing characters to excel in Pure Fiction and allow them to do the damage we need them to do. And then I have Yukong in D tier. And yeah, I also put Hanya. Now, I'll be honest, Hanya is a little bit out of ignorance, but we've been on how many accounts throughout the week? 8, 10, 12 accounts throughout the week, and we haven't used Hanya yet. I do think Hanya, like you guys say with QQ, is maybe getting scammed. Hanya being able to put the burden state on the elite enemy so that your AoE attackers can do additional damage to the chunkier enemies is probably more worth a C or a B. It's more out of my ignorance. And then Yukong just simply ain't getting used. Too much single target. I just don't think it's worth. So, final Harmony tier list is going to be Bronya, Ranmei in A, Asta, Ting Yun in B, Hanya, maybe, unfortunately, and Yukong in D tier. that's the tier list. Let me know what you guys think, which characters got scammed the most, and we can talk about it. If you're watching on YouTube, leave a comment. I powered through that as quick as I could. Woo! Okay, chat, what do you guys think?